Welcome to Martini Time. Here it is on Thursday in beautiful Blackstone, Virginia, the center of the world, but then you too are the center of the world. I'm watching myself here. The title of this talk is, Look, Ma, Nobody. So, this talk is stimulated by a YouTube I was just writing on, which is showing a folding machine. Cost $1,000, and it folds the clothes. Put them in the top, comes out the bottom, all stacked up. $1,000. So that stimulated my mind. See, I inherited my uncle's Tory Richards shirts. He had about 20 of them. That's what he wore all the time, and they cost about $60 a piece. They're so worn out now. See, look at that. Look at the fray. I'm just wearing them until they fall apart, but they need to be ironed. And so I wear these shirts, and then I pile them up in our room, and then I go have a little ritual where I iron and fold the shirts. And I really like that. I like it. I wouldn't. I can't imagine having a machine do that. It's a spiritual thing. It's a that's what monasticism is all about, is doing physical work. That's what Zen is about. Just carry the water. Just chop the wood. Just do that, you see. And so I just iron the clothes, and the steam iron hisses and breathes, and I can feel the heat. And you work with the iron so that it's hot, and you put it up, and it turns you to get it, and there's a rhythm to it, and you go through the shirts in a rhythm, and you hang them up, and there's a satisfaction in that. And it's a metaphorical, for me, household work. I'm the cleaner in my house. Household work has always been a spiritual work, a metaphorical work, in that when I'm ironing the clothes, I'm ironing the wrinkles out of my mind. When I'm sucking up the dirt, I'm sucking up the dirt in my mind. When I'm cleaning something, I'm cleaning my mind. So it's all an exterior way of getting in touch with the interior. I think I've been doing that ever since I got into yoga in 1970. It's just a way of using physical labor to unify the internal and the external world as one. So that when you're doing something in the external world, you are metaphorically doing it internally. Washing and cleaning outside, washing and cleaning inside. Throwing out the outside, throwing out the old outside, throwing out the old inside. There's a metaphorical relationship here, which is basically a spiritual practice. And by spiritual practice, I mean a practice that unifies the mind and the body, that brings them together in a ritual action. So you do the action, the ritual, and it's a living thing. It's living because you're doing it on the inside and the outside at once, and you're bringing the two polarities together as one. That's life. Life is the unity of polarities, the external and the internal, the high and the low, the hot and the cold. All of these polarities of the physical world are unified in spiritual practices, or in art, which is a spiritual practice. My talk here is a spiritual practice because it unifies me. It brings me, focuses me, and I speak, you see, from one place, which is right here. So anyway, I was writing on this machine that ironed your clothes. And then I got to thinking about, I remember the 50s. See, I'm fortunate enough to have, I was born in 1936, so I grew up, became of age in the 50s. And This was the last age of scientific utopia. The last age of paradise regained. I mean, in the 50s, the science magazines were all projecting that by now we would all be like the Jetsons, running around in little helicopters, just pushing buttons and everything, robots and everything would just come and do everything, like slaves, you see. Ideal world. And because this coming out of World War II, out of the Depression, where it came out of the Depression, suddenly you went to war, you unified the nation, and you had all these factories that created this tremendous military machine that now had to be converted. So what are you going to convert these factories to? Where you're going to make washing machines. You're going to make refrigerators. How are you going to sell this? Well, through advertising. So TV came in. And what did they say? Well, you don't have to do any work anymore, particularly to the housewives. You don't have to wash clothes, do all this labor, heat the iron on the wood stove. You don't need a wood stove, you need an electric stove. And so suddenly the future became a place where labor would be, the body would be eliminated, the drudgery and the work of the body. And it was kind of like a metaphorical aristocracy in the sense that you too can be king and queen. You too can be the queen of your house, and you don't have to have any more labor. The machines will do the work for you. If you lived in the South, you had help. So the help did the ironing. All middle-class women in the South had help. Right here in this house. My wife grew up here, and everyone in Blackstone, all the middle-class ladies, had help who did the ironing and the washing, you see. But in the secular world, in the larger world, everybody couldn't have help, so you got machines. And the machine would do you'd still have to put the clothes in, but you wouldn't have to have a wringer, you see. My wife caught her arm in a wringer when she was a little girl trying to help her mother, and she still has the scar right there. So anyway, this whole idea was the science came in as a savior of physical labor, and that's still going on. And I connect that all the way back to Genesis with the curse that God put on Adam and Eve and mankind for disobedience. You're going to have to go out there and sweat now. Everything was easy here in the garden. You don't have to do anything. You just pick the fruit off the trees. Everything was given to you. And you were naughty and disobeyed, and now you're going to have to go out there and get a job. And the women are going to labor in childbirth, and the men are going to have to sweat, you see. And you're going to have to do housework and mow and plow the fields, you see. And now science comes along and says, oh, wait, you don't have to do that. Science will do it for you, you see. Science will eliminate work. And also in the Christian mythology, particular strains of it, this came from the East. The idea was that the goal of life was to be free from the body, to become a spirit and unite with God, you see, because the body was corrupted. It all stinks, and it works, and it gets sick, old age, sickness, and death, and it dies. The goal is to, get with God, you see. So the religion said, you can get rid of the body and go to a better place and be with God in spirit, you see. And science said, wait a minute now, that's after death. What about the kingdom of heaven on earth right now? What about getting back to the garden in unity and be free from the body now in time? Wouldn't that be nice? And you can do it by getting this new washing machine or new computer, so it goes on. So the whole idea of our economy now is getting to paradise, getting to the kingdom of heaven by eliminating the body. Look, Ma, no body. I don't have to, all I have to do is and eventually you won't even have to push a button. You can just think it, and the machine will do it. Or just say it. Well, we do that already. Siri, you know, I could be in an iron lung and just talk to Siri, and Siri would do everything. The computer would do everything, you see. So it's kind of like, almost like this is a scientific mysticism, or like a scientific, the Jains, the ancient religion in India was the Jains, that believed that the whole goal of life was to purify yourself from the body and all desires and all the trouble with the body, and it dies and death and all that. You just want to become the monad, this pure little crystal that rises up and to be with God and united with God, you see, and leave this catastrophe behind, you see. So in a way, now, there's also a revolt against this. There's always a revolt to everything. And there's the revolt, of course, is back to the body, back to doing work, which is what Zen is, back to the chores. Even tattooing is back to the body. Look, I got a body. Back to the body. There's also back to the body, which is a reaction to leaving the body. So I'm just pointing out these different mythological forces at work, and one of is that our consumer economy is basically a secular mysticism, or say I don't hate to say mysticism, but maybe but the idea that the body is fallen. This is a Christian belief. The body is fallen. Nature is fallen. So you don't want to rely on nature and body. You want to control nature with machines, and you don't want to trust your own nature. You want to trust God, you see. But then when science came along, it bypassed all that. That was what the Middle Ages, the Protestant Reformation, was about. Or scientific method, which came up with Protestantism at the same time. Bypass God. If you want to do something, you don't pray to God. You get a machine and fix it. You see, you fix nature. You don't ask God to do it. You do it yourself. How? Through science. So you see, so science kind of like created this whole idea of a scientific utopia. That would be the end of our exile in the world of labor, and we would return to the paradise where we could just sit in a recliner and push buttons and have our beer and everything there, and a little robot would come and bring our drinks and everything. We could watch TV and do our work at home and just sit there and type on a computer, and that would be the end of the body. Of course, then you become a 400-pound nerd. Thanks for dropping in.